President Trump parting ways with Rex Tillerson today following several disagreements, including the Iran nuke deal and, of course, North Korea. The president says he needs someone who is on the same page as him. Watch.
Mike Pompeo, we have a very similar thought process. I think it's going to go very well. We're always on the same wavelength, and that's what I need as Secretary of State.
All right, as we wait, Rex Tillerson, I want to bring in former Assistant Secretary of State Robert Charles for some analysis here. Robert, let me ask you this. Was this the straw that broke the camel's back, in that the president made a decision to meet with Kim Jong-un on the fly, didn't consult Rex Tillerson, didn't consult anyone at the State Department, said, yeah, I'll meet with him provided the conditions are met? Did that contribute to this?
Look, the president's the president, and there's no doubt it did contribute. But what I think the president sees is that there are some dangerous waters ahead, and he wants a seasoned pilot at the ship of state. And that's really what Pompeo will do for him. You've got North Korea, you've got Russia testing him all the time. You've got China just declared they've got an indefinite leader. You've got Iran. That deal has to be a go, no-go in the middle of May. And this president, you know, like any quarterback, picking his own wide receivers and making sure that they're on the same wavelength, he wants someone instinctively that's with him. I will say, you know, of Mike Pompeo, and I don't know him, but I certainly know his reputation. He is an out-of-the-box thinker who is off the charts smart. He was #1 at West Point, Harvard Law Review, Harvard Law School. He's an attorney. He was a captain in the Army. He is clearly a guy that's going to think creatively. He is not what Rex Tillerson was. Rex Tillerson was a very steady company man.
Yeah, that's funny. I was telling my team that this morning. I wondered if that was part of that, because you know, you think about what it takes to rise in an organization like Exxon, and he, you know, he had to have been enormously political. He had to have probably built a ton of consensus, right, within the company. And you contrast that with someone like the president, who is an entrepreneur. And now, you know, as a business reporter, I've known both types, right? You get the CEO versus the entrepreneur, and there is a distinct difference between them. The entrepreneur, self-made man or woman, is very guns blazing, does what they want and need, has a bit of a gut instinct for things, whereas the CEO that's risen up through the ranks is a company man or woman and knows how to get along with everyone and knows how to consult and build consensus, and they're two kind of different styles.
Well, and I think substantively they're different. The style reflects in many ways the way they solve problems. I think Rex Tillerson is an incrementalist, so in many ways it was easy for him to get captured by the State Department. The last thing in the world they wanted is a high-level discussion resolving this issue with all of the, you know, without all of the flamboyance and the early sort of back and forth that goes with negotiating and creating pre-papers and all this. I think what we have with President Trump is a bold decision maker, and what you have with Pompeo is a guy that fully understands bold decisions. And sometimes the only way you can solve a problem is with a bold decision maker.
Yeah. You know, what do you think was really going on, though, in terms of their personal relationship? Why didn't they hit it off more?
I think they probably see the world in different ways, completely differently. I think Tillerson.
What's the fundamental? Okay, go through it.
So Tillerson has spent his entire life inside Exxon until now. So he climbed that ladder very methodically. You know, you don't get a lot of the crosswinds. You don't have to deal. I mean, he's exceptional at what he's done and where he got. But he didn't see other things. He didn't see around corners the way a head of the CIA right now probably sees around corners. And he's also not as multifaceted as Pompeo. Pompeo knows the military. He knows the intelligence community. He's an ace lawyer. He also worked in the private sector as a lawyer at Williams & Connolly. The guy is sharp as a tack. And frankly, if you're the President of the United States, you're going to go sit down for the first time with a guy that is a communist dictator who's you need to have your best people at your elbow. And I think that, and I'm not saying that Rex Tillerson wasn't good for the time. He was a steward for the first year. He provided a degree of stability. Pompeo will provide stability in a much faster current. And it's a different kind of person that gets you across the lake and one that takes you down the rapids.
How much does the CIA background help him as well here, in your view?
Exceptionally. I think, you know, you want the long pole in the tent. You want a person who has seen all of these briefs. And this is not a surprise in a way. This is an individual who briefs the president every day, probably gets along very well with John Kelly, probably gets along very well with Jim Mattis. I feel very confident that he's coming over, and to my view, it'll wake some people up. It'll shape and reshape the way in which the State Department manages these issues. But in particular, North Korea, Russia, China, and Iran, I think you're going to see some really creative thinking here.
It's good. We need it. I mean, you think about some of the reasons why Donald Trump was elected, and Americans wanted a disruptor in chief. They wanted someone who was going to do things differently, and he has shown, certainly, by saying yes to Kim Jong-un, yeah, I'll take the meeting. Yeah. That's a very different approach than anything we've seen over the last several decades. The North Koreans, Robert, have been asking for this meeting, and every sitting president said no until now.
Let's go a step beyond that. This president, President Trump, has done more already with North Korea, long before the meeting, than any president has done in 30 years since Ronald Reagan got them to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1985. Why do I say that? He's got them right now stopped their missile launches. He's got them stopped their nuclear program. And if they don't, there's no meeting. So, you know, Ronald Reagan used to say something along the lines of, if you can't make them see the light, make them feel the heat. And I think this president sees eye to eye with that way of looking at the world. And I think Pompeo does, too.